What's up, everybody? I'm Matt.
And I'm Beth.
And today we're going to be reviewing the interior in the 2023 Mercedes EQB. But this review will also apply to the GLB for the 2023 model year because they're basically identical as far as the interior goes. The EQB is just the electric one, and I will detail all the details about that in my actual driving review. But as far as the interior and the GLB, it's been around for a few years now, but it's still a very nice interior in a lot of ways. Especially at night is where this interior wows the most with all the ambient lighting. At least here in the EQB, it comes standard with the 64 different color ambient lighting. You can pick, any color of the rainbow, and it really is impressive with how it, comes through the air vents, the dash, the doors, and just really helps this interior to pop.
Yeah, it's definitely cool, and I love that it illuminates everything, and it's so nice having a car with ambient lighting, and when you don't, you really can notice the difference when you're like in the dark and like, oh my gosh, I can't see anything in this car. So it's really nice to have ambient lighting as well as it's just pretty.
Yeah, now I am going to reference some of the electric competitors in this video since this is on the electric one. And I will say that a lot of the newer electric stuff that's in the same price range as this feels a lot more high-tech than this does. That's the only thing. This, has these small 10.25-inch screens. They're nice, but, we have a Mach-E personally, and like getting in that felt like I was getting in a car that's like 10 years newer than this because these little screens are, they fit with the interior design, but it's just very underwhelming with all the massive screens and everything these days. But anyway, first thing, they're sitting down in these seats. That's the first thing that also is a little bit noteworthy. So they're nice seats. These are just the base MB Tech seats. This whole interior, by the way, is kind of a rare look at what basically a base model GLB and EQB looks like, because this one is only got like $2,000 in options on it, and this is a base EQB 250. So this one's only about $56,000. They start at about $54,000. So base seats here, and it's fine. I mean, the MB-Tex has always been a pretty nice material, but these ones just felt a little small as far as the seats go. It does have an extendable thigh support here, which is nice, but they just kind of underwhelmed me a little bit.
Yeah, they also seem rather slim, and I really don't like that about this car because I feel like I would like to not feel as like scrunched in with the amount of bolstering on the bottom.
And one other gripe I have about these seats is that, again, since this is essentially a base model, there is no heated seats. Mercedes likes to option stuff, and it's only a $500 option, and anyone who's using their brain speccing one of these things is going to get the heated seats for $500. But just the fact that it doesn't come standard, to me, is just pretty disappointing. You're spending this much money and you have no heated seats, none of those luxuries. Heated steering wheel is also an option, but I mean, heated seats is a pretty basic thing. I mean, you get heated seats in like upper trims of a Honda Civic. I mean, like, it's kind of ridiculous. I was driving this
standard,
thing, yeah.
And this is like you have to actually go in and pick it yourself.
And it's strange because even like higher trims, we were going through the configurator, even higher trims of the EQB, you have to still, even on the the Pinnacle trim, you don't get that as standard. It still is an option. I don't know why. Like, just throw it in. It's $500. You're spending over $50,000 on a little SUV. You think they'd be able to throw in heated seats?
Yeah, that should definitely come standard. I don't know what that's all about.
Another crazy thing, the one package this does have has the keyless entry, but if you don't get that package, you still have to pull your key out and hit the unlock button to get into a base Mercedes. These are things they should have made standard 5 years ago. I don't know why they still nickel and dime you for those things, but they do. So make sure if you're configuring one of these that you make sure you check every box that you need to check, because otherwise you're going to end up with a very strange vehicle that does not have the kind of luxury that you're expecting out of a luxury branded vehicle. The steering wheel, though, in the EQB is a really great wheel, even though it's not heated. You just have a really great grip on it here, some nice metal buttons. These little touch pads, not everyone's crazy about them. I personally don't mind them. We were familiar with them in your previous C-Class that she had. So if you get used to them, I think they'll be totally fine and no issues there. The gauges, though, here are, like I said, a little bit on the small side, but it is really nice that you do have, a very high resolution display, and I love the customization, how you can customize what's shown here in each of these pods, and it's really, a good amount of info. It'll even display like album art on the gauge cluster, which is cool. Your map view, all kinds of stuff. And I really like that adjustability, and that is one advantage I will say that it has over many of its competitors. A lot of the competitors, especially the electric ones, either don't have as much customization or they have a smaller screen that gives you just a few basic things. I like that this shows you how much power you're using. It's just really well done. Coming over to the middle of the dashboard here, you have, again, another 10.25-inch display, and I really like that it is a touchscreen, so that is a great improvement Mercedes has done in the past few years here. And the screen works pretty well. Now, I do have to say, you know, it's very attractive with the way everything's set up, but sometimes things are a little more complicated than I think they need to be still. Some things are buried in submenus a little more than some of the other competitors, and some of the non-luxury competitors, there's just some simpler ways to do things. But I mean, I really love the way that it looks. It's all very attractive, but for example, the fact that you only have 3 different icons basically here on the homepage. You have to swipe over if I want to access the radio. Like, that's 2 swipes versus just 1 touch in any other screen that has 6 or 9 tiles just on, you know, the main homepage there. So, you know, minor little things like that. And another thing I don't love is that it doesn't have wireless Apple CarPlay or wireless Android Auto. It's wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. But again, most of the competitors these days, especially the top stuff in these segments, has wireless smartphone integration. The fact you don't have that in this is also just a little bit of a sore spot in my mind too.
And I wish they could just make the screen a little bit bigger. And, you know, that's a taboo thing. I know that there's some people that are more excited about a smaller screen, etc., etc. But I really think that there's room here, especially with the ginormous air vents. I think they could just make them a little bit more streamlined and make that screen a little bit bigger.
I think you're right though. They could totally put in bigger screens that come up a little bit higher, because it's almost comical that the air vents are basically this, like these 3 air vents are just as wide and just as tall as this screen. It kind of minimizes the screen almost, interestingly.
Yeah, I think they could definitely like pull down the screen even without having to make it that much higher, and just streamline these vents and make them smaller. Because to me, when you first look down at the center here, it just does look like the vents are the star of the show, and I mean, that shouldn't be.
Yeah, especially these days, and especially in something high-tech. Electric vehicles, typically, you know, that's what you're kind of going for. And obviously, Mercedes does do a sharp contrast in all their other electric vehicles, all the EQ stuff, you know, the EQS, EQB, they have these massive hyper screens that the screen dominates everything. But this is kind of old-school Mercedes, I guess, in some ways here, you know, for the next few years until this gets a new generation. But 2 other things I wanted to mention, though, about this screen is that it's hooked up to this Burmester stereo. That is one of the few options this vehicle does have. And I do have to say the Burmester stereo is fantastic. It is very impressive with its clarity and its crispness. It is just like so good sounding, and Mercedes always does an excellent job with all their stereos. But even like compared to our Mach-E and some of the others, even like what the Genesis GV60 offers, I have to say this is definitely better in my opinion. It definitely sounds, you know, a little more clear, a little more powerful, and Mercedes just does a great job with those stereos. But the only other downside though of this screen is that it also has the Mercedes prompt word. So if you say the word Mercedes, it just interrupted me, and it'll do that every single time you say that brand name. And a lot of people hate that. I'm one of those who, you know, it doesn't do it every time, but it's pretty consistent at recognizing that word, and it will, you know, interrupt you and, you know, be annoying. So if you are someone who discusses your vehicle from time to time, you know, it's gonna get on your nerves a little bit, and just wish there was a better way to do voice prompts than, you know, doing that. So that's the only other little minor thing I gotta add about that screen. Moving down though, you have some really nice toggles here, you know, metal switches here for the other climates stuff.
And I have always loved how Mercedes does this. It is very easy to access everything, and it's very streamlined, which the vents should be, but at least this is streamlined, easy to figure out, and easy to access, especially when you're driving.
Yeah, and then there's a few buttons down here by this touchpad, which you still do have a touchpad, so if you don't want to get fingerprints all over the screen, you can still use the touchpad to control all that stuff, and very nicely done the way they set all that up. The storage spaces here in the EQB are also pretty good, same as any, you know, GLB here, so you have these huge pockets in the doors, lots and lots of space in there. In the middle here, you have this nice little wireless charging pad, which is part of this little option package you have here on this one. You also have 2 cup holders here and a power outlet and another USB-C jack. There's also the center armrest here, which splits in the middle, and it's pretty deep as well, and you'll see 2 more USB-C jacks in there as well. And then moving on to the back seat here in the EQB, it's really good. So it's actually the same amount of space as the gas-powered version. I originally had read that the floor is a little higher, but apparently that's not the case here. So anyway, it's just a good amount of space, and honestly, I think this is where it actually shines the most, because compared to some others that this competes with, this is going to feel a little more spacious back there. I feel like this has a little bit more space than like the Genesis GV60 we had last year, and Mercedes even likes to tout that they're one of the few that offers an actual 7-seater configuration in an electric vehicle. The GLB and the EQB, you can get them with a 3rd row if you basically have no interest in cargo space, but those 2nd row seats as a result actually slide forward forward to help you give that third row a little bit more space if you, you know, are planning on using those seats, which I haven't experienced that third row. This one does not have that option, so I can't say what they are like, but based on how small this vehicle is and the reviews I've seen from others, it's tiny and basically only good for small children at best. So don't count on actually using this as a big family hauler, but you know, they do offer that, and that is one thing that basically only the Tesla Model Y can match as far as the whole 7-seat thing in this segment and size class. But anyway, other things in that back seat, you'll see those seats also recline. There's a fold down center armrest, and when you look forward, you'll see dedicated air vents, as well as a normal house current plug and 2 USB-C jacks, and they also have pockets in those doors as well. And this one also, again, having no options, basically, you have no panoramic roof, and so I mean, it actually gives you a ton of headroom, and between that and the boxy shape of this vehicle, I mean, it feels very spacious, great for tall people. You're going to have acres of headroom above you, and so, you know, really good from that standpoint. Cargo space in the back is also really great. Another standout feature here of the EQB. It is supposedly a slight bit less cargo space than the GLB, so I believe it's 27 cubic feet, and then if you, I think if you get the third row option, even with that third row folded, you still end up losing a few cubic feet. But if you just keep it as a 2-row vehicle and that's it, I mean, you know, a really good amount of space. That again, I think that is way more space, and you get like a, you know, GV60, something like that. Even like, I think it's pretty comparable to our Mach-E, which is, you know, a good bit larger. Now you don't have any kind of frunk or anything like you get in the Mach-E and some of the other competitors. There's nothing there, not even like a tiny thing like the Hyundais or the Kias or Genesis have. But Mercedes actually justified the fact that there's no frunk by saying that they had so much space in the back they didn't feel a need to do a frunk on it, because it is a ton of space, especially with how boxy this is. You can stack, you know, super high in this too if you want. So a good amount of space for sure. But anyway, that's all of our thoughts here on the interior of the EQB and the GLB. Yeah, the last thing I'll add is that, you know, you really have to decide as far as the EQB is concerned, since it is basically the same interior, you know, do you actually want the electric thing? Because you do pay a big premium. You know, this one, like I said, starts at about $54,000, and a comparable GLB starts at about $44,000 or so. So I mean, it is like a 10 grand upcharge here for the electric thing, which isn't really that much faster than a base GLB either. You know, there's just, it's, you know, a lot, and I will discuss how this compares pricing wise in my driving review. That's where I really get into the comparisons of this and other vehicles. But, you know, this interior is nice, but compared to all the other competitors and stuff, it's a little tough to justify at its price tag, honestly. But overall, still a very nice interior, very, very cool looking in here. And, yeah, I think the GLB and the EQB are still just a really nice place to be, you know, for the segment and also just for Mercedes in general. One of the last holdouts before we go to these enormous screens everywhere and all the future stuff that they're planning. But anyway, that's all of our thoughts. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care.